Hello and welcome to another week of From Piccadilly to Wigan Pier. Now, following on from the depiction of London life and social elites in vile bodies, this week we'll be looking at the Anna May Wong film Piccadilly. There we are. Which was one of the last silent films to be produced in Britain and appeared in 1929. And it's one of a series of dramas produced around this time which focus on the thrills of London nightlife, but also some of the dangers and perils of urban culture at this time. Such films included Anthony Asquith's Underground from 1928, a thriller about the tangled lives of a group of young people living in London, and Hitchcock's first talking film Blackmail, a thrilling murder mystery which appeared in 1929. Now, why is there this interest in London life amongst filmmakers at the time? Well, in many ways, London offered opportunities for different types of lifestyle that were outside the social mainstream of life, as we've already discussed with reference to vile bodies. So the 1920s is a time of significant social experimentation. It's the high point of flapper culture amongst women, which emphasised androgynous fashion styles. And urban nightlife in London also provided opportunities for queer culture to flourish as an underground lifestyle, particularly with the growth of fancy dress balls, which allowed people to experiment with outrageous types of fashion. Now, of course, the late 1920s is the height of the Jazz Age, when African American musical cultures, or the rage, causing a great deal of anxiety amongst social elites. William Joynson Hicks around this time launches what's often called a war on nightclubs. More generally, in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, there have been significant anxieties about the presence of apparently large numbers of foreigners in Britain, which particularly focused on certain districts in London. So in 1906, we get the introduction of an Aliens Act. Now, much of the debate about the dangerous presence of foreigners in London at this time focuses on the presence of large numbers of East European Jews within the city who are escaping some of the more oppressive elements of Tsarist rule in Russia. But there's also significant anxiety about the presence of a significant Chinese community in the Limehouse district of the East End of London. Now, this is a Conservative poster from 1910 which refers to the issue of Chinese slavery, which was a debate about the ethics of employing large numbers of Chinese labourers in South Africa. Regardless of that issue, obviously it doesn't offer a very flattering image of Chinese people at this time. And in the early 20th century as well, there's a lot of anxieties about the supposed connections between the Chinese community in the East End of London and the drug trade and opium dens. And a good example of this is the popularity of the Fu Manchu novels produced by Sax Rohmer, with Fu Manchu being this dastardly, evil Oriental villain, deeply racist novels. Now, while this might not sound like a particularly appealing environment to work in many ways, conditions for Anna May Wong were more appealing in Britain than they were in America at this time. Now, the plot of Piccadilly focuses on a love triangle, and Anna May Wong's character Shu Shu, who's a scullery maid, competes with Mabel, who's a dancer at a Piccadilly club, for the attentions of the club owner Valentine Wilmot. Now, Wong is a fascinating character in this film. She's often presented as very modern and embodying the androgynous culture of the flapper, but she's also very sexualized and orientalized in her depiction in other parts of the film. Interestingly, this image of a film poster is often the one that you see most often if you do a Google image search for Anna May Wong in Piccadilly. It's actually just a film poster that was produced for Australia, and it doesn't depict any of the scenes in the film. Wong is certainly never presented topless at any part of the movie. So Piccadilly is a very modern film which focuses on the contrast between East and West and how our main characters travel between them, literally in terms of the differences between Anna May Wong's character's life in the Chinese district of the East End of London and life for the smart set in the nightclub in Piccadilly in the West End, but also in terms of how Chinese culture is depicted in this film. Now, interestingly, this week we're going to be doing something quite different in terms of looking at a range of film culture sources in the Bill Douglas Cinema Museum, which is in the old library. Now, this is a fascinating museum to look at, particularly if you're interested in doing history and dissertation in your second and third year. There's over 75,000 film culture sources there, and it's curated by Phil Wickham, who introduced the session. So we'll look at Piccadilly and a variety of other films from the late 1920s which depict urban culture in London. So finally, just something to note if you're interested in producing an essay on this week's topic. The materials are accessible via the YouTube clip and the Screen Online website. Now, Screen Online is only accessible on campus, so I think that's important to mention, and you can stream the free video clips on there. Any questions, just email me or send me a tweet.